Welcome.
Good morning. Welcome to,
Get Real America?
and here it is. Well, God, we're Thursday already.
I can't even believe it.
Wow. Well, the week has gone by like a Lindsay Lohan prison sentence, hasn't it?
Oh, yes, it has. I've never heard that one before, Bill. That was a surprise.
Oh, thank you.
I like it.
So we're getting real, getting down to the nitty gritty of what's going on in your community, our community, as well as what is happening nationally, and to get the stories that you probably won't get anywhere else, or at least in-depth analysis on those. The thing about that, Brittany, is that most of the news media will give you, they won't finish the sentence, as we say in the business. They will give you, they lie with statistics, as they say. As Mark Twain used to say, there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics.
Yeah, except for they cherry pick those, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
They like to spread their narrative with statistics that they choose.
Yes, absolutely.
It's very exciting.
And they will stop at a certain point and not give you one of the reasons that goes into, actually gives you an explanation of why this all happened in the first place.
Yeah, I think that that's going to unravel fairly quickly, Bill, coming up in the next
take
several
long.
months. Yeah, I think that we're going to see a lot of truth come out, which is going to be nice for a change.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the mainstream media will actually report on any of it, but I will say you cannot lie to the American people when they can't afford groceries.
Yeah, or putting gas in their cars, or at least you fill up a quarter of a tank this time, and you just do what you can, and the rest of the time you either hitchhike or you go into negotiations on whether or not you should sell your house to buy an electric car.
Yeah, the energy stuff is ridiculous.
It really is.
And I think that there's also some more impacts here in Savannah that people don't think about. One of the things that has happened is that people, because of their rents being raised, are moving out of this area and going to cheaper areas. And what that means is sometimes they can't take their animals. So a lot of the
Oh boy.
adoption centers here for animals are overflowing right now because I think they had 127 last year at the same time, and they currently have over 218 surrenders, which is awful.
I'm sorry, that's a deal breaker for me. If somebody, if I'm looking for another apartment and I have a cat or whatever, usually I would have a cat, but they said, well, you can't have the cat. Well, then you can't have me either.
Yep. I mean,
it's a member of the family. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but also we're going to see people not be able to afford to feed their animals either.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big problem. And it's the government's fault. I hate to break it to you.
This is all self-inflicted.
Absolutely.
There's no excuse for this. So we keep talking about the media's power to ignore stories, and they will continue to they'll harp on something, and if it doesn't meet their agenda or doesn't meet their criteria, then they're not going to report on it very long.
No.
What you have, for example, the shortage on baby formula.
I mean, we haven't
You
heard
think
about
that's-
that in weeks.
You think that story's? I mean, you would think by looking at any newscast from any of the alphabet networks that problem didn't exist anymore. It has not gone away.
No, it
They've
hasn't.
just quit covering it.
Well, that's what the media does.
So, and I guess I don't even hear about Operation Fly Formula. Who comes up with these names? That the same people that put up the red lights behind the president on his address, hating MAGA people?
Yeah, the Build Back Better crowd.
That's it. Yes. Mm-hmm.
The only thing that got built back better is the Taliban. But
Yeah, and we're thinking about giving them a real break here down at Gitmo.
that broke on 9/11, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
That's that story, which is just incredible. This administration, they have no respect for this country or what it stands for.
I mean, it seems like everything they do is anti-American. There's absolutely nothing that they're doing to help America. When you shut down the fact of going after our own oil, but beg our enemies to sell it to us. When you let tens of thousands of people across the border on a daily basis and you don't know who they are, you give them a cell phone, you tell them about their Social Security benefits, you send them, put them on an airplane and just send them who God knows where. But yet Governor Abbott sends a few of them up to Chicago or New York or Washington, and they have a cow. These are these so-called, the sanctuary cities that they tell you about, all of the nomenclature that they come up with for their particular area is always a lie. When it gets down to the real world, you send them 40 new illegal aliens, and they say, "Ooh, we can't handle it. We're going to need more federal help here. We need the National Guard to come in and help."
Well, they say that they're a sanctuary city, but then when
Yeah.
you're saying, okay, we are sending these people to you,
Mm-hmm.
if you even asked, they would be like, nope. We can't do it. It's
Yeah.
like you can't claim to be a sanctuary. I mean, they can because they do, but they shouldn't. And it's just all virtue signaling, Bill. That's what they're really good at in the Democrat cities and states. So
Yeah. So here in Savannah,
very exciting news about our Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. They've actually sold out their gala, which is very exciting. I love to see people supporting each other, especially, there's a lot of fundraisers going on right now, especially with us being an election year. So very exciting to see people supporting the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And they are also going to be able to kick off a young entrepreneur program.
the thing that is so exciting is that the Hispanics are also waking up and smelling the coffee and realizing that the Republican side is the side they want to be on, and that may be when we see the immigration situation change at the border, when they suddenly discover these people are going to be voting, even though it's illegal. They might be voting for Republicans. That might be, it's time to start the fence again.
I know, right? When their plan backfires, they just make too many assumptions about human behavior. Humans are going to do what they're going to do, right? And you cannot force people to believe you. And so, like I said, when reality hits us, that we all start to live in the same reality and not the alternate ones they make up in their heads.
We don't think monolithically.
No.
And one of the black reporters that I heard say the other day said, I'm glad they're finally recognizing that we don't vote as a bloc. We don't vote. We actually can think for ourselves, and we have our own opinions on politics and everything else.
Yes, and I will say, I think that the video that we showed yesterday on our show with the young Americans that we see that know nothing about the country or anything else, apparently.
It's scary.
It's very scary.
Go back and look at it. You can watch it on our website of this survey, the man on the street interview that was done in New York City.
They couldn't answer basic questions, and these people
not only
are voting.
basic questions, they couldn't answer the question that had the answer.
I know.
Who fought in the
Mexican-American War?
Mexican-American War. What two countries fought in the Mexican-American War?
Japanese, I think is what she said.
Yeah,
I think that was an answer.
And where's the Queen of England from? Where is the Great Wall of China?
Bill, I mean, we need to educate America. We need to really. We talk about public schools, but man, this really shows how bad it's gotten.
And you show people an analog clock and ask them what time it is, and they haven't got a clue.
Unbelievable. That's all I can say. I can't even fathom not knowing a lot of that stuff that should be common knowledge for all of us. But it also makes you understand how people can be indoctrinated so easily.
I have a good friend who teaches at a very prestigious private school here. And he said and there's an analog clock in his classroom. And when he gives the kids a test, he has to draw on the board what the clock will look like when it's time for them when the test is over.
That's awful.
Yeah.
That should not be a thing, Bill. Moving on to the schools, though, at Rincon, they have actually implemented 2 new resource officers this year that are in 2 of the schools there, which I think is fantastic because they didn't plan on having it done this quickly. They were working on it, but because of the unfortunate event in Texas at that school there, they fast-tracked the program and were able to get 2 officers into these 2 schools.
And hopefully with lots of hand sanitizer. Apparently that's what resource
Hopefully they have more
officers
common
need.
sense and are there for the right reasons and understand that their job is to protect the children in those schools and not to focus on the hand sanitizer, because that's probably one of the videos that none of us will ever forget about that shooting.
One of the videos that went viral after the Uvalde shooting was the police standing in the hall with 911 calls coming in galore, begging for help, and they're standing in the hall
as shots are being fired.
And they've got full body armor on and everything else. And there's this one guy that keeps going over. I mean, every 15 or 20 seconds goes over to the hand sanitizer dispenser, and I wish I had stock in hand sanitizer, and washing it, scrubbing his hands like that's going to help somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most heartbreaking videos that has come out of those school shootings. And,
I don't know how you justify this, and a lot of those police officers they've either quit, been fired, or are moving out of town.
But where do you go? You're on camera. Where do you?
Exactly.
You can't live in the U.S.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think people are pretty outraged about it, and you know, I think that there's a quote that says, when bad things happen, it is when good men do nothing, something along those lines. And
all that's necessary for oblivion is for a lot of good men to do nothing.
Yep. So I think that that's, people need to be able to think on their own. I think that we have taught people that they should take orders and shouldn't think for themselves, because I will tell you what, a lot of police officers that I know would have never sat there. They would have been like, I'm going in. I don't care what you say,
And who finally went in? When I heard when I was listening to the news reports and said, that so and so, the guy, they broke in, they finally shot and killed the guy, and a border agent. No, wait a second. How come a border agent was involved in this?
And at least he was armed. There was a mom that went in to get her 2 kids, and she was unarmed, but she's like, I'm sorry, you're not going to keep me away from my kids. I believe she actually jumped back over the fence after they pushed her back. And she was like, I'm going in.
They tried to stop this guy.
Yeah.
And he went in anyway, but it turns out he's the husband of one of the teachers that was there. She called him, and he was the one who responded. And the fact that the other, you thought we'd have learned this lesson. I'm tired of watching this movie. You thought we'd have learned our lesson at Columbine, the first time that this really happened, when the police were standing around outside and they said, well, we didn't know where to go or what to do. Meanwhile, some of the kids and others were saying, we've got this beloved science teacher who's been injured. He's going to bleed out if nobody comes in here. And this guy died, who could have easily have maybe survived had they gone in maybe even 45 minutes sooner and gotten this guy out.
Yeah, and I watched a documentary on a lot of these school shootings, and the media changed the way that they reported on things like this and really made these people infamous. And now people are thinking, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. They're going to say my name on the news over and over again. People are never going to forget me. And regardless, for an evil way or an evil thing or not, that's what people are drawn to.
It's going to be our policy here for the most part that we will not mention these people's names unless they actually get what they deserve, and that's 30 days in the electric chair.
Yeah, and I think that we focus on victims and, kind of what happened to them, because, they're usually the real heroes in this story. The reason they survived is because they fought against it or they helped other people survive. So, man.
One of the great books on this, written after the school shooting at Parkland, Florida, was Why Meadow Died. And her dad published had published his book, and he's been a guest on with Joe Pags. Joe Pagliarulo has a great weekend show, as well as Glenn Beck and on the Blaze, talking about lessons learned from Parkland. If there was ever there was never a more preventable school shooting than the one at Parkland.
Well,
How many times did they arrest this guy? How many times did they go to this guy's house and would call the police going to his house of all the trouble he was causing?
Well, how many times are they aware of this person?
Yeah.
They've had complaints about this person. They know about this person, and yet when people do nothing, bad things happen.
And they saw this kid walking up to the school with a violin case. And well, what did you think he had in mind? He'd already been expelled. Somebody could have done something then that would have prevented this.
Yeah, I think that, we should learn from the lessons of the past and put,
You're supposed to learn from history.
Well, I think you talked about having there was a kid that actually started building the secure door latch that you slide under the door.
I think a high school sophomore working in his shop class came up with this great invention to keep that you put in the door that would keep it from being opened.
Yeah, so why are those not installed in every school? There's no protection for schools. They have, I think they're called trap doors, where you walk into one door and it has to close, and you sit in a barrier almost, and then you have to be buzzed in to go into the school. We don't have those in our schools. Why not? We have them in a lot of government buildings.
Some of our schools do, but I think one of the biggest deterrents is the sign that says gun-free zone. That stops them.
We talked about that yesterday. It's like, is that really the right thing to do? I don't think so. There was actually, was it in Georgia, or it was one of the southern states that actually started training teachers on how to use their guns, and they got permits to have them in the schools, which I think is a good route to go, because if people have guns to defend themselves, they stop bad guys.
Well, we'll help solve that problem coming up as
Yeah.
well. But right now, we're going to hear from some of the people who help pay for all this. This is Get Real America coming up next.
We will be seeing something from Herschel Walker.
Yeah, Herschel talks to us, so to speak.
Than anything else? You realize that? The point is, we ask so much of you. So much of you. I've not...
Welcome back to Get Real America.
Where we're getting real. I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
And our friend Herschel Walker. Now, they've tried to, the Hollyweird has sent in billions of dollars trying to get this guy out of the race.
So much money is coming from California and New York. It's unreal. In all of our races here in Georgia, they are determined that we are not going to be a red state any longer, Bill.
No, yeah, but that's not the case. And Herschel's been accused of a lot of things, and he talked about it recently when they said he tried to kill his wife, threatened to kill her, and Herschel addressed that just recently.
People told me politics is dirty. They're right. My opponents launched a dirty attack ad. They dug up an old video and took it out of context. My opponents think they're hurting me, but I'm glad they did this ad because it gives me an opportunity to end the stigma around mental health. Here's the truth. My ex-wife Cindy and I are good friends, along with her husband and my wife. And I am grateful for all the support Cindy gave me during the hardest time of my life. I came forward back then in an effort to save lives and to help people who were struggling. We need to end the stigma around mental health. Let me say this to anyone watching, all the veterans and people who are suffering. Your life has value. There is hope, and you're not alone. I would rather listen to a friend talk about his struggles than to go to their funeral. That's why I wrote my book about my life. But my opponents, they don't care about the truth. The fact is, Senator Warnock can't talk about his accomplishments. He's failed Georgia, so he and his friends will lie and deceive. We're going to fight back with the truth, but I need your help. I'm asking everyone to go to teamherschel.com and help me fight back with the truth. God bless.
Brittany, I don't care how much we spend or how much they spend. We've known Herschel for 50 years here in Georgia. We watched him grow up, so to speak. And when I was doing high school, covering high school sports, when I was doing television sports back in the 70s and 80s, I covered Herschel when he was playing at Johnson County High School.
Wow.
And so we know him. And when he came to the University of Georgia, we know him. One of the things that I think impressed us more than anything else, and how much he cares about this country and cares about America, and realizes the roots that he came from. And he says, not a whole lot of stuff happening in Johnson County. He said, in fact, if you go to a doctor's office and you get diagnosed and they tell you only have a year to live, he said, move to Johnson County because it'll feel like a lifetime. But one of the things that impressed me was that Vince Dooley, the legendary coach at Georgia, who was the head coach at the time, when Herschel was there and then won the Heisman Trophy. Herschel turned down absolutely, for the era of the time, a mammoth contract from the Canadian Football League. And Vince actually talked to him after one of the practices and said, Herschel, you turned down a heck of a lot of money.
Why would he do that, Bill?
Well, he said, Coach, now this is coming from a college kid, country boy. Coach, he said, I'm an American. I grew up in America. I don't think I'll have to leave it to make a living.
I love that. Someone that
Wow.
loves the country. How can you? Here's the thing. We're all imperfect people. We've all made mistakes in our lives.
Exactly.
And the thing is he said, America, we have problems. Yeah, we do. Can we fix them? Absolutely. But he loves the country. And I think that that's where we need to get back to. We acknowledge that nothing's perfect, but that, there's still hope. There's still, this country is still wonderful.
There's only been one perfect person, and look what they did to him. So they proof's
How'd that
in
work
the
out?
pudding here.
Not
There you
good.
go.
So Herschel, he's such a great candidate. For me, I would rather have someone that isn't a politician. He's not a perfect speaker, but he's lived a life, and he loves America, and he wants to represent people. And the reason he got in the race is because he feels like, there wasn't anyone else. Like, who else was jumping in?
And by the way, the debate has been set that Raphael Warnock, his opponent, and the current empty suit that represents us up there in Washington, that votes with we may as well have Chuck Schumer as our
right
as our senator, that votes with him all the time.
96% of the time he votes with Biden.
Yeah, and so October the 14th at 7:00 is when the debate will take place. It'll be televised statewide. WSAV TV, the NBC affiliate here in Savannah. This is part of the Next Star group. They'll also be carrying it on WRBL in Columbus, WJBF in Augusta, and Fox 5 in Atlanta will also be carrying the debate. So it'll go on statewide coming up October the 14th, 7:00. Now, here's the bad news from that standpoint. Early voting will have already begun.
That's why we encourage you to not vote early and to vote in person on November 8th. And I think that it's interesting that Warnock just accepted this, and he did it, of course, on Twitter, that he would be willing to debate Herschel Walker. So I'm excited to see what this looks like. Again, Herschel, he's not a politician. He does not have, probably the gift of gab like we've seen from Warnock, who is trying to convince everyone that he is this amazing person, and he is fighting for all Georgians, which I do not feel like he has fought for a lot of people that I know. But he's definitely trying to convince everyone of that.
What the thing that amazes me about Warnock, among other things, he's supposed to be a minister. He's the minister of one of the most iconic churches in the country, the one that was where Martin Luther King preached. And yet, this is a guy that doesn't seem to have any knowledge of the Old Testament.
Yeah, well, and I don't know anyone that can say that they are a preacher, that they're, a church-going person, that they believe in God when they are pro-abortion.
Well, not only pro-abortion, he says that the chaplaincy in the military should be discontinued. That you can't be a Christian and be a member of the military, or you can't be a minister and be in the military. That's the
ridiculous.
stupidest thing, one of the stupidest things I've ever heard.
Absolutely
Those guys are amazing. By the way, chaplains do not carry weapons.
No, and I think that being a military chaplain would be a little rough.
It is, and I've talked to we've done numerous. I had a radio show here for years and interviewed chaplains in theater when they were over there in Afghanistan and Iraq and elsewhere, and the ones that were still stationed right here stateside, and their dedication to their job and how they help the soldiers, because soldiers have all these problems of being away from home. They help them with any domestic problems that they may be having. If they've got a problem at home, they got a problem over there too.
Yep.
And we need them to be concentrating on going after the bad guys and concentrating on their job, and know that the people back here are their family is safe back here. And that's one of the things, that's a great liaison that the chaplains do. And also, I think the most amazing thing, most of us, when we don't know our ministers outside of church. We see them on Sunday, and maybe a lot of churches meet on Wednesdays. So we see them then. But we don't see them live their daily lives day to day chaplains are right there with the rest of the troops 24/7. So they get to let them see their Christian, or in some cases Jewish background, and they even have Muslim chaplains as well.
Wow, I think that chaplains should be in the military. I mean,
and Reverend Warnock, and I use the term loosely, read the Old Testament. God and the military were joined at the hip. David's army, Gideon's force, you name it, and there were lots and lots of armies that God said, go in there and get those bad people, because I don't like them anymore, and they are nothing but evil sinners, and they need to be wiped out.
Well, and Raphael Warnock isn't living up to the expectation, I don't think, of Georgians.
No, he doesn't, and he has not, like you said, he has voted so many times with the bad guys.
Well,
voted against things that we have, and the fact that the ads that they're running now, the guy says, I need $10 to buy another gallon of gas, and he's spending
$2 trillion.
Yeah, $2 trillion to go elsewhere.
Yeah, he's. It's so interesting because I thought that true blue Democrats did not believe in war and sending money overseas, but man, how the times have changed, and he has voted to send all of that money to Ukraine, which I feel bad for people of Ukraine. However, we are borrowing money for another country, and we don't have the money.
No.
So how come Ukraine can't borrow that money? Why is it on us to borrow on their behalf? Like, Bill, so I need about $1 million. Do you think you could take out the loan and give me the money?
See me payday.
Yeah. I'm sure. I don't think anyone's agreeable to that, honestly. But we, as the U.S., we decide that we're going to take on all that debt.
Yeah, that's what we have. All right, coming up next,
we are going to be talking about more things that are going on in the U.S.
That's on the way.
Wasteful Washington spending is killing us with inflation and sky-high prices on groceries and gas. Senator Raphael Warnock voted to allow hundreds of millions of dollars of COVID relief funds to be squandered on a luxury resort in Florida, a New Jersey soccer stadium, a ski area in Iowa. Tell Senator Warnock to start voting against reckless spending to stop inflation. Georgia families need cheaper gas and food, not frivolous luxuries in other states.
First of all, what I can do to make things better is bring people together. I love this country. I believe in peace through strength. If we have no strength, we're gonna have no peace. I believe in backing the blue. I believe in the Constitution. I believe that everybody should have a chance to have their faith. Do we have problems? Yes. Can we solve them? Yes. Georgia is my family. The United States is my family. So I'm gonna fight and take care of them.
I'm Herschel Walker, and I approve this message.
Welcome back.
Happy Thursday to you. I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
And we had an interesting situation. The mayor of the city of Savannah, Van Johnson, and we keeping him in our prayers because he's been diagnosed with stage 1 prostate cancer. He's getting it treated. He let it be known publicly just earlier this week. But he's just coming back from the big celebration in Washington with the president because
they're celebrating anti-inflation, Bill.
Yes.
I mean, I haven't seen anti-inflation, but I mean, good for them. I don't know where they're living.
Because remember, last month, in the month of July, it was zero inflation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because remember that it was zero. I don't know where these people take math, Brittany, but it was still 8.5%. It just didn't grow anymore in July, but it did last month, and the stock market dropped like a proverbial stone in free fall.
Yeah, almost reaching 1,300 points in free fall. So that's exciting news. And, the president, he had a lot to say about this.
He did.
For years, so many of us have been trying to fix this problem. But for years, Big Pharma blocked Medicare from negotiating lower drug prices.
All right, I do not want to be a party crasher, but we interrupt this celebration for a hard, cold dose of reality. Stocks tanking because inflation is accelerating. The very inflation that the president said he's made great progress addressing, heralding his Inflation Reduction Act as the boon for the economy that we didn't see in a key number out earlier today. Welcome.
For years, so many of us have been trying to fix this problem. But for years, Big Pharma blocked Medicare from negotiating lower drug prices.
The irony of that clip, Bill.
What world are they living in is what I want to know.
I don't know. How can they continue to just try to gaslight all of us while you're in the middle of partying and celebrating this anti-inflation act, and this news alert comes on saying, you know what, stocks are plummeting, ironically.
No wonder we don't have, we're not going after our own gas. We don't have any more with all the gaslighting they're giving us.
Exactly, Bill. I mean, unreal. And they have James Taylor there singing Fire and Rain. I'm like,
yeah.
So that's a song about suicide. That's actually not a good look.
I always loved his song. I've seen Fire and I've seen Rain. Now here's a guy that gets around.
Yeah.
But James Taylor, left-wing loon, goes around, flying around the world, telling people to reduce their carbon footprint.
Yep, and here they are just having a great celebration. And the thing is how does the American people feel about that? I mean, for me, I'm like, the gall of these people. We're all experiencing the loss of our 401ks, our life savings. And these people are just having a great little concert and having a great time about, their anti-inflation act.
Yeah, and Nancy Pelosi, old San Fran Nan, gets up and starts telling about all the great accomplishments and the great leadership
Biden is.
And pretty soon the crowd was silent, but then she told them,
"That's a line for applause."
Time for you to. They need one of those signs like they have if you ever gone to a TV, the taping of a TV
like
show.
The little red
They've got
sign.
these neon applause signs that come on.
She should carry that with her because no one's clapping for Nancy Pelosi.
Boy,
that's so funny. If you look, do you think that Donald Trump needs to signal when to clap?
No.
Or anyone introducing Donald Trump? I mean.
And he actually can draw a crowd.
That's actually true too. They're not paid interns, but I mean, I can't believe. It's really sad, Bill, what they've done. And they just keep going. They just keep doubling down. So I think on the right, we need to start doubling down. And I don't even know how you go about fixing what they've done.
It's going to take a while. It's
painful.
It's just unbelievable how bad it is. And look at and look how quickly it happened. This guy's been in office less than 2 years.
That's why people telling you not to vote for someone to hold them accountable, the suffering will come, and it will be on you because you didn't vote or you withheld a vote for a Republican because you're mad at them. Let's be mad, but let's be mad after the election, after they win. Let's hold them accountable and make sure that they are doing what they said they would do.
They can hold their feet to the fire later, but for God's sakes, if you vote for a Democrat, you're voting against America. I'm sorry, you are.
Well, and if you withhold your vote, that's basically like voting for a Democrat.
Exactly.
Because you're not canceling out the Democrat vote. You're giving it to them.
Yeah.
So
You say, well, I'm on my principles. I'm not voting for so because I don't like so and so. Well, there's a lot of things that I don't like. As the late great Ronald Reagan used to say, you're 20%. If you disagree with somebody 20% of the time, they're not your 80% enemy.
No, and we shouldn't think of each other as enemies, although this president would like us to believe that we should be enemies and that, the MAGA Republicans are to blame for all of the chaos going on in the country. But, there was a recent poll that was done that said most people think that he is being the most divisive. His speech was terrible, and people aren't buying it anymore. They're not going to be able to gaslight people.
And the fact, all you have to, how much proof do you need? When he took over, inflation was like at 1.2%, the lowest it had ever been practically in history. The only other time it was lower was around 1969, when the economy was pretty much roaring. But even then, inflation was like at 2 or 3%. This was 1.2%. Gasoline was at least $1 to $2 cheaper than it is now. And the reason that we have the only reason that we have the cheapest gas in the country here in Georgia is because of our great governor Brian Kemp has taken the gas tax off, the Georgia gas sales tax off, and said that he's going to keep it off as long as he possibly can.
Yeah, and I think that that's been a big benefit for us. I think people from South Carolina come over our border for
Yeah.
gas. I think that people in
I know.
Tennessee come over our border for gas. So,
Well.
I mean, he's done a good thing, and I think that Kemp he's led as a moderate, which is it's been good for us. I mean, he has made a lot of good progress. He gave us constitutional carry. He also was one of the first governors. I think between him and DeSantis, I think it was Kemp that was first
To open up
after the pandemic.
And boy, did he get the brickbats for it.
Ooh, he did. But we took a lot of tourism from other places, like I said
Sure
yesterday's
did.
show. But I mean, and it's benefited Savannah. Savannah is thriving right now.
People have come here, and they say, boy, it is such a pleasure to be here where, you go into these places, nobody's wearing masks. We go into these places and they're wide open. We can get what we want. People are friendly. We can go get out. What got me is that during this pandemic that turns out is probably as much a hoax as anything else, is they were telling people to stay inside. Well, that was the worst thing they could do. And we said, get out. So you need to get out in the fresh air and the sunshine. We need to get the herd immunity going as much as anything else. And they had us shut up in our homes. And what happened? Suicides have gone up. People turned into the Goodyear blimp because
Yep.
they were overeating.
Yep.
The
People
kids
were depressed.
Yeah,
I mean,
kids weren't learning any. They were what they called virtual learning, which we have said means they were learning virtually nothing. The silver lining to that cloud is the parents found out what was being taught in the schools. And that's when all of a sudden school board meetings became one of the objects of let's go.
yes.
You had for years you had people, your school board meeting, okay, maybe 20 or 30 parents may show up. Now 300 or 400 are showing up. You poke Mama Bear, and
They're coming
you've
for
got
you.
yeah,
They're coming for you.
And you got a fight on your hands. And of
Yes.
course, we had to turn them into domestic terrorists.
Yes. Well, I think the other thing that came from 2020, while it was a very difficult time period for us, I think we also saw what the government is actually doing. And the fact that they have way too much power, and they liked it. They loved having that emergency power. And I think Biden still extended his emergency power.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling we're going to see a climate emergency here pretty quick.
So when you declare an emergency, they can do just about anything, kind of a martial law type thing. And the way they have come out against their opponents has been nothing short of hideous. Just concerning, and we mentioned it yesterday, Mike Lindell of My Pillow. Suddenly he is surrounded by FBI people when he's off on vacation.
He's on a hunting trip in Iowa.
Yeah.
He's at a Hardee's when they come after him. I'm like, these people. And here's the thing. They're already under fire for what they did in Mar-a-Lago. And they just keep going, Bill. I mean, they have...
How many people have they arrested on the street, in public, that it could have easily been done with a warrant, come to their home and say, we'd like to talk to you, here's a warrant, we need you to come downtown and talk with us, or wherever it is.
Well, who's handing out these warrants, too? I
Yes.
mean, I would say that there has to be a pretty high bar for you to start taking people's property. But, I mean, they seem to be handing out these warrants like candy.
Now, and this is interesting, where the FBI said at first, that the president didn't know anything about this. Well, if you believe that, I have an old bridge here I want to sell you. But Mar-a-Lago is in
Florida.
Florida, okay? The FBI has a bureau in Miami. Why didn't the Miami bureau know about this? Why didn't the Miami bureau send its agents there? Why did the raid on Mar-a-Lago come from Washington?
Because it was the same people that started the Russia hoax, Bill.
Oh, yeah.
And hid the Hunter Biden laptop. These are the same people. That's why.
Didn't we, and here's one of the breaking stories that they had yesterday. It turns out that the FBI had a Russian spy on its payroll for the last 5 or 6 years. He was the guy that actually came up with this bogus Russian hoax thing that the Hilda Beast and her Confederates came up with, and that we had to put up with, and the president was impeached at least once on that issue. And how much money did we spend on that? And then they impeached him again for nothing.
Well, because he was about to find out what was going on in Ukraine and why we probably wouldn't be at war right now if we had known what happened in those business dealings. Because there is something there, especially when you see Joe Biden say he had a quid pro quo with the prosecutor there. He wanted him fired and told it wasn't Zelensky. It was Poroshenko.
His predecessor.
You know, he needs to be fired, or else you're not getting this money. And why are we handing bags of cash to foreign countries? $6 billion. Why?
The thing is that that we had this on video. Biden is actually proud of the fact that he's saying you're not going to get the $1 billion unless you fire the prosecutor who's going after my son.
Exactly, and also,
the guy got fired, and he's bragging about it, and yet President Trump makes a phone call in which he said you might want to look into some of the corruption in your country, and suddenly that's he's the biggest treasonous person that's ever walked the face of the planet. Forget Benedict Arnold.
I know, it's unreal, and the fact that I'm not going to say the fact that people can't put this together blows my mind because of the video that we saw yesterday, and I cannot get over it, Bill. The fact that people have no idea where the Wall of China is when China's in the news. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
we showed one of the man on the street type thing, a person on the street that they did in New York City.
And we'll be doing that more often because I think people need to see why we need to abolish the public school system.
Yeah, asking people where the Great Wall of China is, and they didn't know.
Yeah, it's not good. And I want to say that we're not saying that it's the teachers' fault, but the big administrations that have gotten involved, the teachers' unions that have gotten involved, that is the issue. And they haven't allowed teachers to be able to teach. They put all this bureaucracy on them, and it's the same with the government. It's like once the bureaucracy is there, it's really hard to get out of it.
We were told, that once the local school system started accepting federal money, and suddenly lots of strings are attached. They liked what it did to the bank account. What it did to the classroom is unfathomable.
Well, and teachers still don't even have the supplies that they need after taking this federal money, which is infuriating.
It's a shame to see teachers spending a lot of their own money getting supplies.
It's, we need to really address the public school system moving forward, and I hope that we're able to do that in the next 2 to 3 years.
I'm not sure it can be fixed, but whatever it is, we certainly need to
address
start
it.
at least to be addressing it and try to start somewhere.
Yes.
To quote an old Chinese proverb, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step.
Absolutely. And we're going to be right back after this break.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is your governor speaking.
Today's training evolution, dogfighting, taking on the corporate media.
The rules of engagement are as follows. Number 1, don't fire unless fired upon, but when they fire, you fire back with overwhelming force.
Does it say that in the bill? I'm asking you to tell me what's in the bill.
Number 2, never ever back down from a fight.
If I could complete the question, though.
So you're going to give a speech or ask a question?
Number 3, don't accept their narrative.
It's wrong. It's a fake narrative. I just disabused you of the narrative, and you don't care about the facts. It's why people don't trust people like you, because you peddle false narratives.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's jump on.
Georgia's the worst, according to Stacey Abrams.
I am tired of hearing about being the best state in the country to do business when we are the worst state in the country to live. We are the worst state in the country to live.
Oh, bless her heart. Georgia leads the nation because Brian Kemp is governor. He reopened Georgia first, brought thousands of jobs, and Kemp's cut taxes to help families deal with Biden's inflation. Brian Kemp's kept Georgia the best place to live.
No one who is alive today had ever experienced a true pandemic. And I'm hoping that now that this is over, people are going to, recognize that some serious errors were made and not repeat those. That's the best you can get out of it.
So what do you tell those people?
Vote Republican. That's what a lot of them are going to do anyway.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, more than 1 million people transferred over to the Republican Party, I think in 2021 alone. Find out what that number is.
Welcome back.
Wrapping it up here on a Thursday, a little bit of an abbreviated session today, but we're glad to be with you. We're glad you're with us. We'd like your comments. We want to hear from you, and we want to find out what we can do to make things better.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also want to be able to report on things that are going on in the community that are a really positive thing. So let us know. Leave your comments on our website, granewsmedia.com.
Here's something that I want our legislators to work on. They could be working on this rather than giving our money away.
I mean, that's a great idea, Bill.
Yeah, I think so too. There's a great, you have, I've got LifeLock.
Okay.
You've heard of LifeLock.
Yes, I have. I've heard the commercials.
If somebody, in fact, they've saved my bacon on several occasions where they called up and said, "Did you charge $250 on your credit card this weekend in Squedunk, Alaska?" And I'm like, I've never been to Squedunk, Alaska. Oh. I don't even know where that is. And I would say no. They said, well, we've let the bank know we put a hold on on the credit there, so the card didn't go through. So you have LifeLock. I think it's well worth the money. Well, there's another group. I didn't know that. I thought this would have been covered by home insurance or something. Home Title Lock. Newt Gingrich, great Georgia boy, former Speaker of the House and Fox News contributor, is one of the pitch guys for this. But your house can be taken away from you absolutely legally without your knowledge. And here's one of the ads about it.
This is a warning to homeowners. The FBI calls home title fraud the fastest growing white-collar crime in America.
We were opening the mail and our bank told us we were 3 months behind on a home loan we never took out.
Title fraud is where criminals silently drain the equity in your home. Home Title Lock was established to help protect unsuspecting Americans from this financial disaster.
Everything a cyber thief needs to steal your home's title is online. They simply forge a few documents to change the ownership from you to them. Then they borrow tens of thousands of dollars against the equity in your home without you knowing. Title fraud isn't covered by the bank, homeowners insurance, or even identity theft protection.
It took months and thousands in legal fees to get our home back.
Home Title Lock will monitor the title of your home 24/7 and has expert staff to help end this financial and emotional nightmare. Sign up today at HometitleLock.com and get a free scan of the dark web to see if your home's title has already been compromised. Call or go to HometitleLock.com.
Very scary, Bill.
Well, there's another ad that they has one of the guys who has done it. I guess he was arrested and behind bars, and he is now kind of turned state's evidence, as it were, explaining how he did it.
And he said it was way easy. It's way easier now than it was when he did it. I'm like, how did it get easier?
He said a lot of people think you go through this process. He said it's one piece of paper. Why? And then you've got the county manager from one of these counties saying, if somebody produces, maybe not county manager, but the guy who works in the tax office or whatever, said if somebody comes in with this paper and even though we might know it's fraudulent, we can't accuse them of it. It's legal. He said it's against the law for us to turn down this thing. Suddenly you find out you don't own your house anymore. They have taken out a loan. They've transferred the ownership to them. They have borrowed money on your house. You don't even know about it. Why is this so simple? Why can this be done almost in the blink of an eye and you lose your house? I would hate to think, my wife and I live in a beautiful house. We've been there almost 25 years. And they're going to take us out feet first. I love this place.
Yeah.
So I mean, we don't have any plans of moving. In fact, the last moving experience I had, if I had to pay somebody $50,000 to move us, I would.
Yeah, moving is not fun, Bill. But the thing that is really concerning to me is that why would you, you've gotten a loan for something, haven't you?
Oh, sure.
I mean, it's an in-depth process. You have a lot of paperwork you have to fill out, and you have to have notaries signed, da-da-da-da-da.
And there's no guarantee you're going to get it either.
Yeah, so why don't they require a simple notary? That seemed like it would be helpful.
One of the things would be nice.
Yeah, I mean,
and why isn't it difficult to make this transfer? Why is it one piece of paper? You go down and you get it signed and signed, sealed, and delivered, and suddenly it's your house. I don't understand this, and I don't know why legislators, at least on a state level, if not the federal level, why this is so easy and why it can't be prevented now.
Well, I would think that there would be some safeguards, some simple safeguards you could put in place that, I mean, why wouldn't both parties have to be there? I mean,
yeah,
it would make sense to me why
you would have to do that. So why do we have to pay for and thank God there's somebody that, the home title lock, I can't see no aspersions there. I'm glad that somebody's doing it, but most people would think, like your homeowner's insurance would cover it. It's just like the false feelings that a lot of people have here about hurricanes or floods. They think that your home insurance is going to cover floods and things. No, you've got to have flood insurance.
Yep, it's a separate policy.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we should look at is why are these things not covered, number one, but number two, I think it's great that they're doing this, but it's an additional cost that people, especially right now, can't really afford to have, but it's like kind of necessary, especially if it's as easy as they say it is. And I mean, Bill, let's be honest. They were supposed to do something about the spam calls. I don't know about you, but their solutions don't work, whatever they did.
If I had $1 for every spam call that I got, or $1 for every time I got a request for donations to a particular political campaign or whatever, I'd need that $1 trillion stimulus.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, it's
gotten worse.
I know, but they said they were fixing it. They put something in place. I haven't seen the results of that.
And they said it wouldn't have your cell number. But a lot of people now don't even have landlines in their house anymore. It's just their cell phone. Frankly, I don't think that's a good idea. I would never be without a landline at my house.
Well, the landline. So my parents did get rid of their landline, but their landline only had solicitors calling it. I mean, there was no one calling that phone except for people trying to sell my parents something or trying to get money for something. So they did get rid of their landline. But I mean, why is that public information? I should be able to get to choose if I allow that. That's my right.
Exactly.
But they take away your privacy rights when they just, put everything online, including your mortgage title.
So we'd like answers. We'd like, effective legislation. Most state legislators and state legislatures meet, and here in Georgia, it's 40 days.
That's not a lot of time.
You have a 40-day legislative session. And in some cases, I think in Texas, they only meet every other year. Of course, I remember a great line from a New Mexico governor said one time, he said, our legislature meets 40 days a year, 40 days a year, or 40 days once a year, and for all the work they get done, they can meet one day every 40 years.
Yeah.
But at the same time, why don't we, useful legislation like this? I talked to one of our state representatives, a good friend of ours, Ron Stevens, from here in the Savannah area. And I said, I saw something in Tennessee that was one of the most effective legislations that I have ever, and I believe it's the state of Tennessee and several others, maybe Kentucky is doing it as well. But it concerns drunk drivers. I've often wondered, why can't we do something more? How many times do we have to see this movie of innocent people getting killed by drunk drivers? And Tennessee's finally done something that says if a drunk driver kills a person who has children, minor children, they have to pay child support.
It makes sense.
Wow. That is useful legislation. I mentioned that to Ron. He said that's going to be one of the bills he'll bring up in the Georgia legislative session that starts in January.
Well, and also there's no excuse to drive drunk now.
No, there isn't.
We have Uber, we have Lyft, we have taxis, but at the same time, we have places like Nashville and also Savannah that have those open liquor laws that allow people to just get really wasted really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know. There's always a double-edged sword with some of this legislation.
There is, but I think that is very useful legislation, saying that if you kill the parent of a minor child or children, then you have to pay child support until they're 18.
And that makes sense to me because those kids' lives are forever changed by not having that parent.
Exactly.
But they should have financial stability at the very least.
Exactly.
For your actions.
So, with legislative sessions about to get underway in most states, think about useful legislation, making it a lot tougher to steal somebody's house legally by going through just a very simple, a one-page process. What was the last time you saw any legislation coming out that was one page?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I would love to see that, but I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime.
No, you won't.
Yeah, and I think that that's another thing. When legislative session comes into play, I mean, you should be thinking about the things that you really want your representatives to be working on, and you should be calling them, you should be writing them letters. We need to be just as involved as they are with the legislation. Otherwise, we end up with some legislation that we don't agree with and legislation that does not benefit us. Mm-hmm. So being engaged is super important, especially as we get through this election and then we head into January with the legislative session.
Please know what's going on. Get your legislators together. In fact, a lot of places, including here in Georgia, speaking of Ron Stevens, he and others have a local legislative get-together with the news media saying, here's what the legislative session looks like. Here are some of the bills that are going to be on the table. What do you think? What do you think we ought to bring up? What kind of vetoes do we need? What do we need to look into? So there's a lot of that goes on as well, and we do appreciate the fact that they try to stay in touch with us.
Yes, so if you guys have stuff that you would like to see in legislation coming up, please send it to us. We would love to be able to also ask questions about it. Like, why do you think this is important? And what are the benefits of us really pushing legislation like this? And, stay involved, go to those sessions,
mm-hmm.
Make sure that you know what your representatives are voting for and what legislation they are working on.
Coming up next week, by the way, I want to talk to you about, Tucker Carlson has done a great interview with a guy who has come up with an American-owned, American-manufactured company making ammunition, especially now for our military, that is made right here. There's a danger that China is buying up these copper mines all around the world, and it's going to be a lot more difficult for us to get brass to make ammunition. There's a company here that's doing it, and they have redesigned the ammunition that is extremely innovative, and wait till you hear about this.
I can't wait to hear about that next week, Bill. I love American made, and I also love when we're able to be innovative and make something new right here in the good old USA.
Just like Get Real America. We're American made. Some of these programs, some of this stuff was pre-recorded, like we have to tell you that. But we will see you again tomorrow.
Yep, make sure to check us out on Rumble, YouTube, Vimeo, granewsmedia.com, Spotify, and Apple. And we'll see you guys next week.